Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just the latest on what we're doing out here. First of all, I want to once again thank the more than 100 firefighters who have been out here battling this blaze since late last night, absolutely tirelessly. As you can see, the building is still burning. We heard a loud noise a while back, and we're told that it's probable that one of the floors may have collapsed in there. So there's a lot that is still unstable and a lot that's going on, and they're probably going to be out here for at least the next couple of days dealing with this. But I just wanted to thank them for all of their hard work. It has been an incredible scene out here, and obviously one that's extraordinarily sad and disappointing to a lot of us. And I've got Council President Salem here from the City Council. If we need City Council to take any action in terms of this building, they're standing ready to do so. But first of all, let me turn it over to Chief Powers and let him give you the very latest, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're continuing to try to extinguish this fire. The problem we're having is because we cannot get inside for safety reasons, the void spaces are holding a lot of the fire underneath. We have our drones up, which have infrared technology in them, and we can see the hot spots and where they're burning, but getting to them is extremely difficult using ladder pipes because we can't get up into those void spaces. So in some cases, we're having to wait on the fire to burn through so we get the ladder pipe in there to put it out. As the mayor mentioned, there was a collapse that occurred inside the building a little bit earlier, but we don't have any personnel deployed in that building because of the safety issues that are going on inside there. So we'll continue throughout the rest of the afternoon and probably into the night to work on extinguishing this thing. We also have some integrity issues with the walls. If you look at the building, you can see some of the walls are a little bit bowed, and that's because the whole roof has burnt off of the building. It's burnt down into some of the lower floors now, and when that happens, those walls are not supported now, and they're getting a little bit unstable, which is creating a safety issue around the building. So if you notice, our ladder pipes are positioned on the corners of the building, and that's the safest area where we can put our personnel, and we don't have anybody in the flat areas of the building. So with that, we'll be glad to take any questions.
Chief, I know there's concerns about the possibility that the walls could fall outwards. You've got some businesses nearby, Intuition, Manifest. What can be done there?
Right now, there's nothing that can be done other than to keep people out of those areas until we can get the fire extinguished. Once we get the fire extinguished, engineers will come in and they'll make a determination on how we proceed from there.
Could you tell us a little bit, normally apartments have like safety features, so the fire would be contained, in a single unit or something. I mean, what's sort of your guess as to why this was able to spread so significantly through the structure? I mean, was it just because maybe those safety features haven't been installed yet, or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think you're right. As I was telling the mayor earlier, a lot of the void spaces, the chases where the pipes go through and all that, once it's completed, those are all sealed up. But during the construction phase, they're open, and that allows fire to get into those hidden voids and move throughout the building, and that makes it, more difficult for us to extinguish. Once the building's completed, those are sealed up and you wouldn't have that issue.
Was there a sprinkler system and did it activate?
There is the piping for a sprinkler system, but it did not activate.
Any idea why?
I'm not sure. That's part of the investigative process.
How many people had already rented here? Do you know a percentage?
I'm not aware. That would be a
what
question.
might be options that the city could do for those who are expecting to move in a month or so?
Well, we will be working with whoever was already contracted to move into the building to see if we can help them establish new housing.
So, Chief, you're going to have manpower out here, it sounds like around the clock for a while. Can you talk to me about how your crews are doing, exhaustion, keeping hydrated, those sorts of things?
Well, I can't praise them enough. There was some heroic things that were done in here last night that trying to save, like Intuition. They made a big stand on that side of the building, and that's just our men and women and what they do every day. They go above and beyond. But those crews worked throughout the night from like 9 o'clock last night till about 8 o'clock this morning. We made shift change down here on scene, brought in fresh crews, and then every 6 hours going forward from this morning, we're going to be putting fresh crews down here and giving our folks, time to go back to the fire stations and catch their breath. We've got food, coming in for them, water coming in, obviously restroom facilities and all that. But I can't again praise the men and women of JFRD enough for the heroic actions they took last night to protect some of these surrounding businesses.
On the big stand for Intuition, I mean, what is that? Just more
dumping more water at once? Is that, can you describe what you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on there, but mainly keeping the fire from progressing over there and then compromising that south-facing wall, which could have fallen over into intuition. And then obviously the spirits that are inside that building are highly flammable, and which could have created a bigger catastrophe than we already had.
Is intuition structurally safe to our knowledge?
As far as I know, it is.
Chief, right now we're still dealing with some road closures that we even saw this morning. When will it, or what will have to happen for these roads to be safe enough to then open it back up to the public?
Well, until we get done extinguishing the fire, they're going to have to stay closed for the safety of our personnel and the safety of the public. You know, we don't want anybody walking by that potential collapse zone. But there's going to be a meeting this afternoon with some city lawyers, engineers, and municipal code compliance and something like that. They're going to have to make a determination on what we're going to have to do to keep this area safe until we can figure out what to do in the future. You know, there's some collapse issues that we're concerned about.
What does an investigation like this look like? I know that the state fire marshal is going to be investigating, but JFRD is looking into it. And then who pays for all this? All the fuel, all the resources, all the overtime? Is that going to be something that's going to eventually go toward the property owner?
No, so our city council and our mayor provide us with the resources that we need to protect this county on an annual basis, and it's just it comes out of our normal budget process.
Chief, at this point, is it safe to say this is a total loss, and do we know anything else about what may have started all this?
I'm not an engineer, obviously, but just looking from what we can see from the overhead and all that, I would probably say it is going to be a total loss, but the engineers will make that determination.
And no cause yet?
No cause yet.
Mayor, I know that you've been in contact with representatives from the property, and I'm sure City Council has too as well, Dr. Salem. What are they saying through all of this? Obviously, there's just so many questions right now from our community.
Well, so far not much. They've obviously thanked profusely the JFRD for being out here and for doing what they can do. But we haven't heard much else from them beyond the fact that they are hopeful that at some point they'll be able to get back and rebuild. Obviously, at this point, that's going to be a process.
Is this a local group, local company? Can you tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
it's
more?
a company. Rise apparently started in Valdosta, but is now based in Jacksonville, moved to Jacksonville. So they are at least local, and I think that might make dealing with it a little bit easier than having somebody from out of town.
Any update, because there was a bit of a city investment in this building, how that might all shake out, what kind of damages the city may incur based on what's already paid?
Well, look, from my understanding, that was a rev grant of about $6.7 million, and that doesn't get paid till the project is completed. So that hasn't been paid out yet, and obviously it won't be now until the building is completed.
Was there a working sprinkler system in the building at the time?
There was a sprinkler system in the building, but from my understanding, it was not activated.
Let's take a look at where we are. We're right in the heart of Jacksonville's prized arts and entertainment and sports district. I mean, everything is on the way up, and we're trying to bring people in from across the country, potentially the world, for events here. What does it do for you personally, maybe not as a mayor, but as a citizen, to see this?
Well, as I said earlier, obviously growing up here and seeing that old Doro building that's been here for 100 years and watching the transformation of it, it is it's heartbreaking to see this happen. I mean, this was something that we were all so very much looking forward to, that we felt was going to be such a catalyst to the development down here in the entertainment district. So it's a setback, and it's extraordinarily disappointing. I think now, all we can hope is that we can move forward as quickly as possible to get it cleaned up and restart the process. One of the concerns we have right now is we're trying to protect the river from all this this runoff that's going out into the water, and we want to make sure that a lot of the debris that falls from the building doesn't also make its way into the river. But for the long term, I think we're just going to have to hopefully move through this process quickly. I have seen many comments today talking about the Berkman, and I completely understand why people looked at that process and they're concerned. But there have been some measures that have been put in place since that Berkman collapse that hopefully would make this be a much quicker process moving through, and I have every confidence that we will move through this process quickly.
And do we know if the sprinkler system that did not activate was supposed to activate?
I don't know that. I would not want to speculate on exactly what was supposed to happen there. Certainly it's a question I have. and I would like to know in terms of the codes. This is one of the things hopefully that will be answered as we continue to have meetings this afternoon and as the investigation continues, but that is certainly a question I have. If the move-in date was March 1st, one would wonder if the sprinklers would have been on, but I don't know what the actual code is that way.
Maybe this is a little early, but obviously there's, like Vic mentioned, a lot of construction that's expected to happen here, you know, over the next few years. I mean, are there any lessons that can be learned from this? You know, things maybe city council can do or whatever it may be to ensure as these things are being constructed, they're safe and we don't see a repeat.
Well, look, Jake, I don't know how we could know the answer to that until we know actually what happened here. You know, we were dealing with a lot of things at once last night. There were wind gusts of up to 30 miles an hour, which continued all night last night. The atmosphere is extraordinarily dry, which I'm sure wasn't helpful. But we still don't have any idea how this started, and it appears that it started in a middle layer of the building, or on the you know, 4th, 6th floor, or something like that. So it's not like it started on the ground floor. There's a lot of very interesting and puzzling things about this. So I don't think we can answer the question of how we would move forward to protect ourselves if we don't know what caused it to begin with. But certainly, as I said before, we've taken steps over the last several years to make sure that the process when something like this happens will move more quickly.
I heard that a security guard from somewhere called in the initial 911 call to JFRD, and obviously thankful for them.
Yeah.
Was that a security guard for the property? Is this property secured? Because there are concerns that somebody may have been in there. Was this property secured by security?
That is a question that we have. We do not know whose security person that was at this point, and hopefully we'll get those questions answered later this afternoon.
You know, Mayor, you talked a lot about the disappointment, the development that was going to happen here. This was going to be the catalyst to really get things started. Have you talked to the JAGs? Have you talked to them about the concerns that this could have about, you know, we have the hotel going up, we have the office complex. I've been talking to people on the east side. They're concerned about this as well. What do you want to tell them?
Well, Jim, I haven't talked to anybody yet. I've been out here since this morning just trying to, first of all, make sure everybody was safe and make sure I knew what we were dealing with. So, of course, those conversations will be ongoing. But certainly what I want everybody to know, and I'm certain Council President Salem would say the same thing, is we are absolutely committed to this development in this area. And so we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we move through this process quickly and that everything else that is supposed to happen continues to happen apace.
Mayor Deegan, I know that you've been here since 9 a.m. like you just said, and you've seen a lot in your experience. Can you kind of describe the magnitude of this fire, especially if there are going to be, for example, games maybe that are canceled or other things that are going to be postponed due to the road closures?
Well, look, I'm hopeful that once we get this place, I'm hopeful that once we get this area, once we get the fire out, and we can determine what we need to do to keep the community safe in terms of the structure, I think we won't have to worry too much about events around this. In the next several days, I think we have an Iceman game that's going to take place in the arena, so that would be one thing we'd have to take a look at. But beyond that, I don't think there's a concern that this road is going to be closed for a long period of time.
But seeing the fire yourself, I mean, you've seen a lot happen in your experience.
Yes, I have.
How is this magnitude compared to other fires that you may have seen in downtown Jacksonville?
Well, certainly, as Chief Powers said to me earlier, there are many fires that we've had that have been of much greater magnitude than this. What makes this one particularly heart-wrenching is what we all waited so long to see happen here, and obviously the fact that it was just this close to being open, and perhaps we should be grateful for that, depending on what happened with this fire. At least there was nobody inside, but certainly considering where we are as a city and what our focus is downtown, it's certainly something that's very disappointing to see.
Last question for you. Did the city inspection include anything dealing with the sprinkler system, or do you know anything about that?
I just don't at this point. We all have a great number of questions where it comes to the code, the city inspections, why the fire sprinkler system wasn't activated, all those things. I just don't know the answers to those yet, and I don't want to answer something that I just don't know, but I'm hopeful we'll get those answers in the coming days.
And I don't know who can answer this, but what about air quality? People are concerned, some people have breathing trouble, they're smelling it in the air. We don't know what kind of material's burning up right now. How do we feel about air quality in
Well,
Jackson?
we talked with Dr. Joshi about that earlier, and he said that people who are sensitive to smoke that are around the area may want to consider wearing an N95 or may want to just stay away from the area. But this wind is blowing pretty heavily. The smoke is dissipating very quickly. So from our understanding, the overall air quality is not being affected detrimentally.
How far away the developer was from getting a final certificate of occupancy for Massachusetts?
I don't know. I know that they were scheduled to open on March 1st, and what I have been told, and again, I have not been able to confirm this through the developer, but I have been told that over the coming weeks they were planning to start moving folks in. So they were very close.
Chief, is there a plan to enter the building and start fighting the fire from inside?
No, the building's too unsafe to put firefighters inside, and so we're just going to have to do. That's what's taken so long. Normally, we would already have had this thing extinguished if we could have got inside, but because of the dangers that we were facing there, we had to pull the crews out, and they'll stay out for the duration now.
So do what you can outside.
That's all we can do.
Thanks, everybody.
Who's investigating at this point?
The state fire marshal's office is here investigating.
Thank y'all very much.